afternoon. It's about 2 o'clock here in the east. I am just north of Atlanta. I am working out of the new Latex Garage Academy. So I have equipment, as you can see here in my garage. I have a Latex 365 and also a Suma cutter. I have quite a few rolls of media, most color equipment, as well as a lot of the software. We are relocated for the time being. Everybody, of course, has had some adjustments to make. Mine have been fairly light. I've had a lot of this equipment here to work from home, and now it came in quite handy. But what we're going to cover today is more of the software proposition for Latex, certainly, but also any really HP printer that we manufacture today has these capabilities and is supported by a cloud-based software called PrintOS. PrintOS is an attempt by HP to take all of our printer technology, which would also include, like I have an all-in-one page-wide printer, and then we also have web presses, Indigo, grand format flatbeds, and latex flatbeds, Stitch, our die subline. Our attempt is to put all of this in one place, just like you would log in with Microsoft 365. You log in, the whole suite of applications is available to you. Adobe, you log into Adobe, there's your rights, your login, your Creative Cloud. Google, same idea. You have one login and then the entire application suite opens up and you can link from thing to thing to thing and sync it, and it identifies you and you retain your identity through a cloud, secure cloud environment. That is what HP has built as well, and we've done it for the printing industry. Now, what I'm going to show you has a lot of peripheral pieces. Some of them are not completely connected to PrintOS. Most of them are. I'm going to explain the outlines of PrintOS, some of the components, and then my coworker, my colleague Paul Wagner, is going to explain several of the last remaining ones, and then we'll open it up for questions. This is our first webinar for PrintOS, so bear with us if it appears like we don't know what we're doing. We mostly know what we're doing. The PrintOS is primarily developed for, a lot of it initially was developed for Indigo, and then also developed for page-wide. But the great thing about HP is because, one, we're a global company, and two, we have a huge R&D budget and a great deal of innovation within the company. And because we developed something for the big web presses, you know, these huge automated digital web presses, that technology ultimately is going to get migrated down to all the other products. Because once we have a sunk cost, once we've invested in all the time in the engineers and the programmers to make something, there's no reason why we can't apply it cross-platform. And I think that's one of the big advantages that HP offers, is being able to cross-platform offer software so that then we can justify this huge investment in time and money and talent to build things like PrintOS. I think of PrintOS very much like a shopping mall. You go in, and there's a whole bunch of stores. Inside, some of the stores apply to you. You know, I'm going to go to certain stores in the shopping mall. I'm not going to go to other stores. They don't interest me, or they don't apply to my business. That's the case in PrintOS. I would say about 50% of the things in PrintOS completely valid for what you're likely doing. 50% may not be applicable unless you had an Indigo press, or unless you had label and pack, or some other things. But anything that we develop, whatever we add on, whatever's new, will land at PrintOS, because we want PrintOS to be a single login point that is provided to you for free for HP. With a lot of similar companies, this software would not be free. We encourage you to use it. We encourage you to know what's in it. You can choose what stores you want to go to and what's valuable to you, and then ultimately apply them. But I want you to know what's in it so that that way you have a chance to take advantage of it. So without further me chatting here on the camera, I think it's time to move over to the software itself. I'm going to pull up here and we're going to share my screen. Bob, if you would be so kind, is to allow me to share the screen.
to you right now, and there you go.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay. You all should be seeing at this point the media locator. Is that the case?
No, not yet. We're still got you, Tim.
Oh, hold on a minute. Maybe I have to actually actively share the screen. Just a minute. Hey, Bob, I think you might have to switch to the other me.
All right. And
there we go. That's it.
Got it.
Got it. Yep, that did it. Okay, what you're seeing here is the media locator, but I don't want to start there. I want to start over here at PrintOS Home. Now, PrintOS appears when you log in. You'll have everyone has a serial number on their printer. So you will go into PrintOS and you will apply, and then usually in a day or so we will send you a notice that you're in and everything has been approved, and we recognize the serial number of the printer. And then when you log in, this, for example, represents my login at the Experience Center in Alpharetta, Georgia. Now, the Experience Center is all the HP printers that are there, so Indigos and PageWides and flatbeds and Stitch and everything else, industrial latex, low-volume latex. I have two of my low-volume latex, the print and cutter printers, registered here. And this front screen shows you an idea of, we have 253 people. The management for permissions is conducted by my manager. So when you want to log in a printer or register something, we have permissions set up so that he gives permissions as to who can do what. I can't go in and put a new printer in completely and have it activated in this page. He has to ultimately approve it, and we have that set up for permission so people can't do anything they want. We have 40 devices that are in our current layout there. And these are the list of all the devices that are operating under PrintOS. So you can run a very large operation out of here without any question. Switch back over here. Also, if you notice here, one of the printers, it needs to be activated. So once these printers are in the PrintOS system, there is a great deal of sophistication about how they're tracked. So we have a service ID, an account ID for each one of them, serial numbers are all there. This Latex 3600 is not activated, and here's instructions to continue to do that. All the rest of them, we have stitches. Actually, I think this is just the large format, not the stitch that's in a separate category. And these are all available to the customer. I'm going to go back to home. This is your landing page. For the most part, you can get to a lot of different places from here. Obviously, you can set orders in production, errors, shipping. It's the ability here with PrintOS is to track your jobs from beginning to end. Now, that may not apply to, say, some of the low-volume latex jobs here, but it certainly applies to a lot of the PageWide and Indigo, where the goal is that we want to know in every step of the job creation and then the finishing where that job is. And then here you have a Cytex Smart Uptime Kit. That is not collecting data at that time, but that is service-oriented, and I'll get to that shortly and show you that. So this is your landing page. Up here, you have your application page. This is where you get to see them all. These are all the stores in the mall. And we're going to go through quite a few of them, but not all of them. The first one I want to show you is your organizational page. And we have a series of different things along here that you can click on the left-hand side: users, invitations, shifts, resellers, and then also history. All the users that have been turned on or turned off and when. Then we have a configuration center. Now, configuration center, you'll see in a lot of these, there'll be like a little menu to walk you through things. I'm going to skip that at this point because that's kind of my job. Here's where we are going with our color development and our printer monitoring. We know that people don't keep current with their products. And there's certain things on these products that we're monitoring now that will help a production manager, which is what I did in another life, to allow customers to track and observe all of their products and to ensure that the products are current. Here's a Latex 335, for example. It knows that it needs a color calibration. And that's right. That's what I have loaded on there. When I left the demo center, I have Avery 2611. I'm running, it was built in Onyx, and it is not color calibrated. I did not hit color calibrate on the little button for the printer. Same thing with this flatbed R1000, that is not color calibrated. And this shows you the status of everything. If there were firmware that needs to be updated, I have a printer here to my left, and I know it needs firmware, and I'll show you a little later where it shows up. But in this case, that printer is not connected to this system, so it doesn't know, it doesn't see it. But these show you all the printers, both of these stitches need to be color calibrated. If there were firmware that was necessary, it would recognize there's firmware and it would tell you there's firmware. And then also, if there were packages to install, here's how that works. Let me kind of do it maybe with this 335. So loaded substrate is not calibrated. This is the current firmware version. This is the loaded substrate. You can check it in PrintBeat, and we'll go there in a second. These are the medias. And then here is also packages deployed and backups. These are all the substrates that have been installed on the printer. These are packages. What we're starting to do now is you can back it up from here, so you can back up all that's on the hard drive onto it. And also we're setting this up where if you have a multiple location, so you had like 5 location customer, and the location 1, they built something on a 335 that had all the color work and everything was dialed in, and in a way it became your reference printer. What we do now is then we export the file out of the embedded web server, and then we send that through an email, and everybody loads it in, and maybe they do and maybe they don't. What this allows you to do is you can take that information, that color information, and then you create a package, and then you can send it to the other printers that would show up here in your universe, and then they can bring that color work into the printer. And then what you would see then is packages to install. So if I sent one here to another location at, say, their 315 over here, then it would say there's a substrate to be package to be installed. It will prompt you to ask if you want to install it, and then once you do, that would then show up in the other printer. We're trying to integrate all the printers that show up in a PrintOS operation as having uniform printhead alignment, all using the same firmware, all currently color calibrated, and they're all calibrated to a original reference preset, which has a specific color profile that was then sent out as a package to all the other printers to enter it into their hard drive, and then it will all show up in their particular printer. And I can look at this from one screen as a production manager and say, it all aligns. Everything is uniform. They're all current. They should all be mimicking. If you have things out like color calibration, printhead, firmware, and every location is doing whatever they want, which is the general condition, and I have no way to verify, I just don't know what's going on over there. I'm dependent upon, they say it's current, but it's not. I can look here and know every printer in my universe is exactly where it's supposed to be, and I can send out an email or drop a text and say, hey guys, over in the Raleigh location, you need to do your printhead alignments, you need to update your firmware, and you also need to do a color calibration. And why haven't you approved the package I sent to you? What are you printing with? You're using some generic print, and then we're comparing colors and they don't match. So that's designed. This whole configuration center is designed to unify substrates, have access to all of our library of substrates, the HP Media Locator, as well as ultimately we're looking at things like reseller substrates, so that if IT Supplies, for example, built a universe of color and it could be put on here, then we could have this available to the customers from here. So we're trying to create a single location where all color devices get uniform color. We can check it, we can confirm it, and then we can share information between all the printers because they're all talking to each other. That's your configuration center. Then we have PrintBeat. PrintBeat is the updated version of the embedded web server that I'm going to show you in a little while. We initially built everything around an embedded web server, and we still use that. We have an embedded web server, and then we have a web server that's built onto the computers on some of the, like Latex 3600 or some of the flatbeds. That still functions completely, and that's been around a long time. What this is we want everything to be on a cloud. We want it on a cloud because it's secure, we control it, and then we can allow it to be populated as an app for Android and Apple and for tablets. It can't just, like back in the day, everything was directed towards, you have a desktop PC and everything is running through a browser in Windows. Now that's not really the case. Some of the stuff is Windows, some of it is on a tablet, and some of it is on a phone. It just depends what you're doing and how you want to track it. PrintOS is designed to go on all applications. It's an application-based software. This is the new way that everything is going to be tracked. So here's my 335. It's saying disconnected. You know, there may be things going on in Barcelona that I'm not aware of. This is all right. It knows all of my ink, so I can see everything about the printer from here. I know that these inks are expired and or they're really low, and that's why I'm getting warnings. These are the print head values, letting you know the condition of all the print heads. And then here's the printer, here's the firmware, everything is there. It also will show you things like, you know, what did we do last week? That's not, that's the 1500. Let me deselect that. You can drill down on just one, or you can drill down on a whole bunch of them. I didn't do anything last week on it. You have historical reports. So this is what those printers did. This is what they've been up to. Then you have a dashboard, which shows you your substrate. You know, here's a little tutorial that will always show you. Information about print production, ink consumption, jobs. So you'll see this a little similar in the embedded web server, but we're also tracking all the jobs that went through. So as a production manager, if I'm viewing this, nobody runs anything without me knowing it, okay? You can't come in on the weekend and run a bunch of jobs and then, you know, delete the records. I have records of everything. Everything on here is tracked. I know how much ink it used. I know how much square footage it printed. You have clicks, which doesn't apply just yet. Color beat. You know, these are things that we have for other, depends, like we have device families. So if you went to Indigo or PageWide, some of this stuff would show up. Year-to-date growth, operators, and settings. So we have some of the settings. It's a very granular system that to some extent was built on things like PageWide. Because the PageWide is just so important. It's so big. They run these huge inline printers, and that's what this was developed for, because every, you know, fraction of a penny amounts to $1 million at the end of the year on this stuff. So they want to track every drop of ink that goes through. Well, the same granular control also applies to the small latex printers. And then moving down here a little bit, some of the other ones don't really, like AutoFlow is really more Indigo. Paul's going to cover application centers in a little while. Composer, again, is more for SmartStream, which applies more to Indigo. Configuration Center I went over. DScoop is a link to a entity that HP participates in, which is an organization of printers. Obviously, it has value. We have a big D-Scoop conference. There's an enormous amount of good information at these D-Scoop events. As you see, we're trying to put anything we think would have value, insight, more HP presses, knowledge zone. Now this is definitely, knowledge center definitely applies to the latex universe. So I'll click on that. The knowledge center is where we have all of our information. It's like a clearinghouse for any information connected to the operations of latex. So if you wanted to know print and cut, you type it in. Now you see you've got forums, blogs, they're all showing up in there. And there's your print and cut in the forum where people have asked questions, you have conversations. You can do by search. These are urgent, extended downtime procedures because we know a lot of these customers are going to be down. You know, I've been receiving calls, for example, from North Carolina State University and others saying, hey, we might be out for 3 weeks. What do we do? Well, there you go. Go to the Knowledge Center. It's, you know, page 1. We're telling you, just released, this is the information that we recommend that you do. It's all in there. If they knew about the Knowledge Center, they could find this. But it's easier sometimes to just show them PrintOS and tell them what's in it. And that way, all they have to do is go onto PrintOS and get comfortable with finding this stuff because they can link to everything from a single location. All kinds of information there's the forum, so you can set up on the forum and they'll answer your questions. This is a much better place to go, and it also has it in Spanish, rather than going on Signs 101 and just having a bunch of goofballs who have no idea what they're talking about. I'm not even allowed on Signs 101. It's so painful that I would just have this snarky attitude, and I don't want to represent HP with my snarky 101 attitude. Paul has to go on to Signs 101 and answer these questions. And, you know, they just don't know. They don't know. They're guessing. And rather than just say, I don't know, they try to help some other poor guy who doesn't know. If you went to the forums, you would definitely have quality, knowledgeable people answering your questions. As you can see, a lot of people length correction, all this other stuff. Then you have the printers themselves. So I have a 365 here. You have all the information, firmware, facts, cutting alignment, relative neat information that you need for it, porous substrates, color. A lot of the videos that I made are all on here. So the Knowledge Center is definitely a key value for the PrintOS universe. Moving down a little further, these are obviously all more indigos. This is a key one. No question about it, the media locator. I use the media locator all the time for everything. And you can look at it a lot of different ways. Let's say I have a canvas on here and I don't know what it is. Somebody sent me a canvas. And I look at the canvas and I go, well, is it matte or gloss or semi-gloss? Well, it's a matte canvas. Does it seem to be a real thin, cheapo canvas, or is it a little higher end canvas? It looks to be a little higher end canvas. So you click on the printer, let this come up, go to Filter, Printer Models, 365. And now I might, instead of going manufacturer, which I could do, I could look at Aurora, I could look at Tara Fredericks. I might also go by subtype and scroll down here to Canvas and click Apply. Now these are all these canvases. There's 45 canvases on here. Think of it this way. You have 45 recipes to choose from. So it's just like, you know, I want to do something with swordfish. You type in swordfish into Google and everyone has a different recipe for swordfish. Depending on what your taste and what you're trying to do, you can find a recipe that's right for you. So if it were a matte canvas, well, here's an Expressions matte canvas. Even if you don't, it's not the same as what's on here, which is kind of what it was designed for. You can still get a matte canvas that would probably be much closer to the canvas that you have rather than just using generic. I call this surrogate printing. You're finding something on here that's a surrogate for what you have, but what you want to find is the closest surrogate. So if I were printing a wall covering that was very similar, it was paper-based, I'm not going to use a PVC wall covering. I'm going to look for, say, Dreamscape Terralon or HP Durable Suede or something that's similar to the wall covering that I have. And using the media locator that way will allow you to have recipes where you start to get an idea of what is the product and what are the settings. So when you click here, it'll give you settings. And so it has a certified preset using these settings. And if you download it into the printer, it will mostly, I mean, if you wanted to create your own preset for Canvas, you could start using this as a recipe template to build your own, because it's kind of telling you it's got 12 passes, 30 vacuum, 12 on the optimizer. And if you didn't like it, you can always look at another matte canvas that you think matches a little better, because there's probably a few of them in there. And you can probably even search by matte canvas, like right there. And then type and subtype, manufacturer, classification. This is certified media, environmental, region. Sometimes things are not in a region and it's not available. The media locator I use all the time, constantly. The more you know it, the more you can take advantage of all of what's in here and get really good results. Even if it's in another region, I might find that what I'm printing on and what's on there. So here's an Ultraflex Multitext. That's a thin, inexpensive canvas. Okay, so it's like an El Cheapo canvas. It's thin. There's a lot of products out there that fall into that category. I mean, it's made by all kinds of Asian mills. That is a very different product than the Expression Satin Canvas or the Expressions Gloss. Those are 2-in-1 weaves. It's much thicker. It has a whole nice gesso coating. Multitext is basically 100% polyester. It's a 1-in-1, and it has a decent white point in coating, but it's going to have different temperature points and a lot of other things. You could run that Multitext pretty fast because it's much thinner, and the heat will go through better. So the Multitext is a perfect stand-in for a whole host of El Cheapo canvases. So once you kind of know what's in the locator and what you have, lining that up can make things very easy. And then I would download it and then just sort of rename it on the printer and do a color calibration. The media locator has an enormous library in it, and it gets bigger all the time, and we're going to continue to use this just to give you the depth of what's in there. I mean, I'll get rid of that. Everybody's in there, and this is worldwide. So I use this stuff constantly for everything. And if you don't like what's in there sometimes, so let's say you download something and it's 8-pass 100%, and that's a little lighter on the ink. It's a nice production speed, but the customer wants more ink. All you have to do is go into the existing preset, add a mode, especially on a 365 or a 500, you can create your own print mode and just add on to what's already built, and then look at the existing settings and just mimic those, you know, the temperature and the vacuum and those things. So Media Locator, probably the most important, most useful tool that sits in the PrintOS, which you have access to. I'll click on organization, but that's kind of, I'm already on that site. That's where that is right there. Indigo, that's Imposer, Indigo, all that stuff is really more Indigo applicable. So again, stores I'm not likely to go to. Insight also more press oriented. We went to the Knowledge Center. Marketplace is worth a visit. We're going to start putting more and more stuff on here and linking more things there. I don't consider it an essential store, but it has some value. Ideas and things that we put in there, on-site color training, licenses. It explains some of the different applications and what they're for. So if you want to click on these, it explains the applications, growth. We do a lot of on-site color training. That's more indigo focused. This is something I think is going to be very helpful. And this is the service center. This isn't fully structured right now for everything, but it is worth noting. The mid-volume latex, the flatbeds, and the industrial latex, they have more of a structure in this with the service center. And you can see here, it's kind of cool. Here's all my printers. And this is the service, like we have an open case on the 1500 in the demo center, and then that's being listed here. These are cases where, here's the idea that you from a single location can open up cases on the printer. So you're having trouble with a printer, you're looking for the stupid phone number, you can't find it, who do I call? Well, it's all in PrintOS. And this links right to the HP Service Center. So if you want to create a case, you can create cases here, and that the idea would be we can have full service support for all of our printers from a single location that's linked to the cloud. Because you've entered in your information, we know you have your serial number. We don't want you to keep opening up, why do you have to share the same information with all these different departments over and over again? Okay, the data is here, it's in one place, it's secure, HP can look at it. Yes, you have a printer. Yes, it's registered. Yes, it's your serial number. And I think that has some value in our system. Site flow, soft proof, again, probably not really stores that, again, Indigo Digital. A great deal of this was structured initially for Indigo, but it doesn't mean that we don't have value with it. Now, the other thing I want to go over, which is not part of this, this is sort of its precursor, and this is the embedded web server. The embedded web server is what HP created, which is still a pretty remarkable and sophisticated tracking software that we had for all our design jets, the T-Series, Z-Series, Latex. This is the original software. This is all ultimately going to migrate to PrintOS. This is the old original version. PrintOS is the current version. And once we feel that everything here is supported on PrintOS, this will slowly become, more of a legacy product. This is how you connect to the printer through the IP address. So I'm running a 360 here actually, but it functions just like a 365 with the way I have it configured. You have main, setup, networking, data sharing agreement, and support. On the main panel, you have obviously your status, so you can see everything that's going on in the printer. You have a history, usage. So this is all that I've run through here. Everything is tracked. And this is probably the one the customer is going to want to see most. This is your accounting software. And until the Cloud OS becomes a little bit more robust for low volume latex, this will remain your accounting software for the time being. They haven't integrated all the costing. They have the ink usage and they have the media, but they don't have the costing associated with it yet. Cost assignments here allow you to put in information. So I'm running 3MIJ40 right now, and it's 775 milliliters. I have it set for $165. Now that might not be current. The 165 reflects not just the ink cost. It is the ink cost, which I think is a little more than I initially, when I put this together. I probably need to go and build a new one of these. It might be closer to 170 or 175 at this point. You put in your ink price for 775 milliliters. Then what you want to do is figure out the print head for the expected life of the print head at, say, 4 liters. How much print head is going to be built into this cost so that every time you put in a 775 milliliter of ink, the print head is going to have a percentage of that life used up. Once that's figured, let's say I had been doing it as $20, then you have a cleaning cartridge, and that has been $10. So it's $135 plus 20 plus 10, $165. That's a fair price. That is an all-consumable price. Then I add in the media, so 54 inches, 150 feet, $225, or whatever your media is, Avery, anything you put in there. I do a fixed cost of basically the time involved to swap out media and stuff. You don't have to do that, and then you'd apply. When you do that, all of your accounting, every job you've run, is calculated. And for example, I just ran some HP logos to put on the punching bag. So substrate, other, which is most of the cost here, and then my ink, 55 cents. So if you have others set too high, it'll goof things up. So the Ganesh thing that I ran just a little while ago, substrate I used $3, and I used $4.14 in ink. You can export all of this to Excel. It's also true in PrintOS in the print beat, and both of them can download and print to Excel, because that's where you really want to look at this data. This is one of the key features of the printer. This is not an estimator. This is an exact amount of ink and the exact amount of media you use. You can turn this on in setup so that it tracks, I have it tracking 20 jobs, but you can have it track 500. And this is information for the printer on how you want to configure it. English, what units, cutter on, and better web server preferences. I mean, it allows you to detail on security. It allows you internet, email server. You want notifications. Traditionally, we could use this for notifications. I really don't use this for notifications anymore. Paul's going to go over the mobile app, and I do all my notifications through the mobile app, either through a tablet or a phone. And it's just, PrintOS is much better at sending notifications and controlling notifications like an app. Just turn them on or off if you want them. This is just a little cruder, going back more to an email PC-based system that I don't think many people are using anymore. Date and time, anonymous usage information storage, print head alignment, maintenance, firmware update. So I have a firmware update that's needed on here. Now, if this were on PrintOS, it would see that very easily and clearly. In this case, I know that this needs to be updated, and at some point I'm going to do that. It shows you release history. You can do a manual firmware update and firmware update settings, okay? These can all be controlled on the printer panel, or they can be controlled here. And then substrate management, that's if I build so I have a media on here, and I've built some custom 12-pass 120% ink densities. If I want to share this with someone else, all I have to do is go to export, find it. It's in there somewhere. One thing I don't like about this is it's not alphabetized. Click on it and hit export. It is now going to export this as an OMS file. That's a proprietary HP file, and it will be available to anybody else that uses a 360, 365, 335. The 500 series can send to one another, and all the pieces come in. The 300 series can send to each other, and all the pieces come in. That is not true of cross-platform. Now, if you do try to cross-platform, some of the pieces may come in unless they've blocked that. They may have blocked it now entirely. It used to be, it would warn you and say, hey, this isn't really appropriate, but you'd still at least get the mechanical settings like vacuum and everything, and then you could custom make the color on the printer. But as a general rule, 500s go with 500s, 300s go with 300s. And that's how you import and export. So if I gave you one, you would import it from here, export there. If you use the media locator and you download from the media locator, you're going to get a file on your computer. Okay, when you get that file, what do you do with it? Well, when you download it, it goes to your printer. Then what you do is go over here, go to import, and then go click on the file, and that's how you update and load it on the printer. That's the process. This communicates back and forth to the printer. You need information from the printer, you go here. You need to send it to the printer, you go here. Networking, of course, we have, we're a networking company. We have all this networking security. So if you have a serious network guru who knows what they're doing, that's not me. I don't touch this stuff. All I know is I can make a real hash of it. But if you wanted to lock things down and have a great deal of security, we give the ability to do that. Management protocols, authorizations, settings, all this stuff can be really locked down. This is very important to companies like Boeing, military, Gulfstream. Those guys do not goof around. They want things seriously locked out. And so they'll bring a team in here and make sure that all this stuff is completely locked down so that nobody can do anything on it. You have a data sharing agreement. It's voluntary. All you have to do is turn it on. That allows HP to try to track information. The way that we gather information about the life of printheads, what people print, all this other stuff is based on these data sharing agreements. We don't spy on you. We don't have any interest in that. The process of collecting the information is totally anonymous. All we want to know is how often are people changing out printheads? What are they printing? Are they printing on fabric? Are they printing on adhesive vinyl? And then we have a support tab. I do use this support tab. Printer information, if you click on this, diagnostic package, if you click on this, this connects to the printer. And what it's doing to the printer is saying what's going on everything on the printer. And if you want information about the printer, usage information, it's going to go get usage information. Everything that goes on in this printer is tracked and can be observed. Our service teams can use a lot of this information to get an idea of what's going on. It also is kind of cool. So here's usage per printhead slot. These are your nozzles out. So this is evaluating my nozzles. And if I need to, this will really help me figure out where I might have problems. If you're trying to track down, for example, some banding, and you have two printheads, and so it's like, well, which printhead? Well, what I'm going to look for is lines here where you have a whole bunch of nozzles right next to each other. And this obviously has more nozzles out. But more nozzles isn't necessarily an indication of where the banding is. It's usually an indication of a whole bunch of nozzles together. But this is very helpful for diagnosing the printer. This is the exact nozzle point that we know that's out. And you see here it's got magenta and there's yellow. There's magenta and there's the yellow. Product number, substrate usage, everything is on here. So if you want a lot of information about the printer, there you go. That is your embedded web server. And it has a bunch of links here, definitely helpful. Some of these might dead end at this point because, again, it's a little bit of a legacy troubleshooting, technical support web page. This is the embedded web server. It's the precursor to the PrintOS. And then before I turn Paul on, because Paul's going to go over next, there is something that I think is a very helpful software tool. I'm not just saying it because most of these are mine. Some of them are Paul's. Look, there's Paul right there, okay? So you can't say they're all mine. Oh, there's another Paul. So I went in here. If you go to HP support on YouTube, okay? You have YouTube HP support. That's going to give you like everything in its grandmother. I mean, it's like everything HP makes, which is ridiculous. We make a lot of stuff. What you want is just latex-oriented stuff. I don't know where all the support stuff is. So you want to type latex, and then immediately that's going to narrow things. And that gives you all kinds of latex videos. There's more Paul. So there we're discussing cutter blade depth. You know, what's the perfect cutter blade depth and how do you get that? There's like fat me. That's like fattest point me right there. I still have that jacket just to remind me. It's like enormous. When you're pushing that much weight, you may as well just own it. You can't hide it. And so that's the support. And then if you want to know something specific, like tiling, there you're going to get a whole bunch of information on tiling. To me, this is more in depth than you have in the Knowledge Center, and it's an easier find because, let's face it, YouTube and Google do a killer job of making it easy to find things. And so I use this because I'm in a hurry. I know my way around YouTube. Everything is on there, and it's super easy to find stuff. And HP Support has also been putting up a lot of tiling tricks and other stuff there. So I think this is definitely a huge complement for the Knowledge Center, and that's why I included it on there. Now, from here, Paul's going to discuss the Application Center, which used to be called the Wall Art, which sort of is, but now Application Center has the Wall Art as part of it. And the Application Center, and then also our very cool, handy mobile app, which I think are very valuable tools for the customer. So I'm going to stop sharing, if I can figure out how to do that.
It right now over to Paul.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Timothy.
Second. And,
appreciate that.
My pleasure.
And there we go.
All right.
Let's see.
So let me know when you can see my screen.
I can see. PrintOS. Wow. All that graphics.
Isn't that great? That is just amazing stuff. All right. So thank you, guys. Thank you, Timothy. Thank you, Bob. So yeah, I'd like to just in the relatively short time we have left, I'd like to just also make sure you don't leave this event without at least a peripheral understanding of some of the modules that we think are really, really interesting and really key and add a lot of value to the experience of owning an HP device, specifically latex in this case, right? So this is a component of PrintOS that that Tim's been talking about, has really three key attributes, if you will. I'm going to shrink the size of my control screen there. That's better. So lots and lots of tools, lots of analytics and capabilities. We're going to look at that. That is part of the what's called PrintOS for PSP mobile app. And that's gone through an evaluation or through an evolutionary process that continues to evolve. But the key thing is that these tools are all available on the device in question of where you are in real time, right? So that might be your smartphone, it might be a tablet, it might be a computer in some cases, right? And then an element of all good cloud-based apps is security, and these clearly are very, very secure. So your data is safe, even though you might be hundreds or thousands of miles away from your device. So let me go ahead and see if I can figure out how to advance this thing. There we go. All right. So again, just to sort of break this down into a little bit of a different way, we're going to really focus first and foremost on what we now call the Application Center. And Application Center is all about helping you grow your business. Now, obviously, we know that in times like this, business growth is maybe not the key message that you're looking for. You're maybe looking to survive the next couple of weeks, and I think we can all kind of understand that. But really, this is about understanding the capabilities and the tools that are there when you are looking to grow, right? So Application Center is one of the things I want to focus on. This actually takes a series of 17 modules. It's actually across 3 distinct disciplines of print. So we break those 17 into 3 categories. The first is the old legacy category that for many years was just simply called HP Wall Art. And that actually started almost 10 years ago as a tool to compose wall covering applications. That is now a suite of applications consisting of 6 discrete modules, right? From there, we added another 10 applications called Signage Suite, and then the most recent applications is something called a retail suite. So at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is to allow these tools to be used in one of two key scenarios, right? It's either used by your customers, i.e. they're going on to your website typically and accessing these modules and building files remotely, and those files get sent back to you. Or in some cases, people are actually using this in more of a kiosk type of scenario, sort of in-house. And I'll show you an example of what that might look like as well, right? So there's lots and lots of robustness here that is very, very cool and very powerful, right? So again, there's lots of modules. You don't have to do all 17 if you can pick and choose and turn only some on and some off. But most of them also include content, right? So that's one of the key things is where does this content come from? And we have lots and lots of sources of content within this, some of which are free, which is always popular, some of which are not free, but there's a cost to those, right? So we've recently added, for example, Unsplash, which is a free supplier of photo content, which is really quite nice. All right. So again, there's two ways you can use the tools, either as an in-house tool or as a web to print tool, right? It absolutely automates the process to allow much more efficiency in terms of workflow. So when I'm talking to PSPs, one of the questions I always get from people is, do you get files from customers? And the answer today is almost uniformly, yes, of course. Every single day I get files from customers. And then I ask the follow-up question that says, well, how many of those files are print-ready files, right? And how many of them are truly ready to go right to the printer? And the answer is almost never any, or very, very few, right? So one of the very cool things about this tool set is it creates error-free, surprise-free PDFs, which allows us to avoid things like reprints or missing elements or color spaces, just all sorts of things that can go wrong with files that I'm sure some of you have probably experienced. And then the last component would be, how does this get integrated? How does it get applied and tied to the rest of your web presence, right? So there's different ways of doing that as well. Right, so the simplest way of integrating this into your web presence is to use a simple link. This is just HTML file data rather, which is copied and pasted the link into your website. It says click here to go to wall art, or click here to go to this module or that module, right? It has somewhat limited functionality because it is such a basic approach, right? It doesn't necessarily keep your branding or your color schemes and so forth. The second way of dealing with this, which is a little bit more robust, if your website is based on a WordPress platform, there are links and APIs specifically built for WordPress, and that also allows you to add e-commerce capabilities and payment processing capabilities as well. And then finally, the last one would be a full-blown applications programming interface, which is custom programming. We have a company in Salt Lake City that can help you with that, you know, if the programming is beyond your scope. But that gives you really the ultimate in terms of customizability and making sure that the branding is consistent, right? So I'm going to skip from here. I'm just going to go ahead and close this out, not close it, but I'll come back to that. But I would like to actually switch into a live view. So hopefully you're seeing what we call the dashboard within the Application Center now. And you can see, for example, any orders that have come in over the last 30 days. You can see I haven't been very busy. I've been stuck at home for the last couple of weeks. But on the right side of the screen, there's the modules that I was referring to. So you can see, for example, the 6 wall art suite applications, which includes window blinds, which is a very, very powerful and interesting application. Your traditional wall coverings, a module for cushions, for canvases, for posters, and for wall decals like fatheads and the like. Within the signage suite realm, you've got a total of 10 modules. So roll-ups and banners and t-shirts and sweatshirts and various other sign-oriented functions. And then at the very bottom is a really nice little application for creating custom digitally printed gift wrap. So if you have a latex printer, perhaps you know, or perhaps you don't know, that you can actually do custom gift wrap. And we actually have an HP product called HP wrapping paper, which is a satin finish 100-gram paper. So it looks and feels like wrapping paper. And then this is a software tool that allows you to actually create the custom pattern, the repeating pattern, which would allow that to scale out, right? So it's a great little application for latex, right? The other thing we can do here is we can upload our own content. So I'm going to switch over into the content tab, right? And this is where you can see the various folder structure that has been created. I created one called HP Incorporated, and inside here I have a series of vector components as well as photo components that have been upgraded or uploaded to this website. So you can almost think of this like a content management tool, because that's exactly what it is. It allows you to upload your content and securely share that content with anybody you want to give access to. So it's not open to the world. It's not where people can pull your content and steal it. It's only available to people who actually are going to use you and presumably pay you for putting that content into actual products, right? So, and that breaks into a number of different categories. So what I'd like to do is maybe just drill through a couple of these. So one of the things that I had done is I took that content that I had uploaded and put that into this is, for example, the Canvas module, right? So one of the very cool things about the Canvas module is once you upload that content, I've defined the width and the height of my canvas. In the module itself, you can also add things like trim lines, cut lines, and say which would be added when this file gets built. So when I do this, go to the next stage in this file, it's going to save this. It's going to give it a cost, and then when I hit add to order, the actual file will be built, and it's going to be built, and then it's going to be sent back to me as the PSP, and only to me as a print ready PDF without surprises. That is amazing, right? Because that's what we're all looking for. That's the freaking holy grail, is files that we know are good, then we know that work, right? A different module, let's see, this is the cushions module. So let me show you how this is actually a very cool one. So I'll take some of this vector artwork that I had created. So I'm going to take and drag my Photoshop logo. We're going to scale that up, go to the back side of my pillow. Maybe we'll take the Illustrator logo, once again, scale that up. And then I can turn around and do a rendering on this, and it will now show me what my pillow would look like. I've already previously defined the size of this, right? And if I don't like it, I can always come back in here and simply delete it and put some other content in there. Maybe I want to put a big HP logo on there or scale that, right? So very, very easy. Anybody can use these tools because they're very, very simple, right? And so that's our module for creating cushions and pillows, right? And again, once we're done, we hit next, the file gets built, it gets sent back, and we go to the next, right? It's really very much the same thing for the t-shirt module, right? So in this case, this is our two-dimensional rendering of the t-shirts. And if I wanted to, I could come in here. I did this for my daughter last year at school. I took the name of herself and some of her roommates, put them onto the t-shirt, made some custom t-shirts for them, right? And she didn't really appreciate it, but that's okay. I still enjoyed it, right? So there you see the nice rendering of the shirt in a 3D rendering. So really powerful as a presentation tool to allow you to grow your business. And that's really why these are here. So I've seen all kinds of things over the years, people saying, well, what is HP doing with this? Why are they giving this functionality away, which is super valuable, that really nobody else gives away? And the answer is really very simple. It's not that we're trying to take your customers. It's not that we have any interest in any of that. It's that we're trying to help you grow your business, because as you grow your business, then we both grow together, right? Because you're going to buy ink, hopefully you're going to buy more printers, and we can both thrive. So it's really a win-win scenario. All right, so let's go ahead and leave that one. Take another quick peek. I think I'll close that one down as well. Let's go back to kind of where we started and back to the dashboard. I'm not sure if my file, usually it takes a few minutes for the file to come back. Looks like my internet might be a little bit slow too. There it is. So there's my production file. If I want to pull that down, there it is. There's my PDF file, 15 megabytes. And I can pull that right down and go right into production with that. And that will have all my trim lines, my cut lines for what to deal with, corners on the bevels, the whole bit. So I can take it right from printing to trimming to stretching onto the frame and ship it in the same day, right? So these files are typically available for essentially 1 month, and at 31 days, they become archived, right? So this is a very, very cool, very unique set of tools. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and if you have questions, feel free to throw those into the chat. We'll take a look at that as well. I'm going to go ahead and minimize that. We're going to bring up the next module. So the next thing that Tim talked about is earlier was PrintBeat. Do you recall that from earlier in the session? So PrintBeat is accessing data from the printer, typically through a browser-based interface. And now that could be remotely, but it's typically in a browser. So a computer browser is not necessarily the right form factor for something like a phone, right? You can do it. You can certainly open up a browser on your phone, but it might be hard to see because of the formatting. So in 2015, we created something called the mobile app, the Latex mobile app, and that actually has now morphed into a series of um, capabilities and tools for both smartphones, which are either Android or iOS Apple, or tablets as well would be the other platform, right? So in 2015, it started off with this, and it more recently it has morphed into something called PrintOS, right? And so what PrintOS does is it allows us to monitor the printer from a device, provided that device has data access. That's the only thing we need. I don't need to be in the building. I don't need Bluetooth connectivity, which is rather pointless in my opinion. I mean, think about that. What good is it to have Bluetooth if I want to go to the, if I have to be tied to my building within 30 or 50 feet of the device, what's the value of something like that? Unless unless I have an ankle bracelet on or something like that, I suppose, and I have to stay home all the time. But this tool is data driven, meaning as long as I have data anywhere in the world, I can essentially be monitoring my printer. That could consist of as few as one printer. It could be as many as 32 printers. As Timothy mentioned, it could be latex, it could be Cytex, it could be design jets, it could be page-wide Excels, it could be pretty much anything within the graphics portfolio that HP makes are all, for the most part, supported within this platform, right? It's also got a lot of analytics, a lot of reporting capabilities to allow you to track your business progress over time and make sure that you're achieving milestones and goals, right? So what started off as the mobile app has now evolved into PrintOS mobile app, and that is PrintOS for PSPs, right? So it's just getting more and more robust as we move forward in time. Okay, so some of the things I'll drill through very quickly. This is something which is downloaded from either the App Store or from the iOS store. It's just an app. It's quite simple to get it set up. You do have to set the account up, and then you download the app, and then it links to the printer. So on some of the platforms, it allows us to see things like our queued jobs. That functionality is not on low volume, but it is on the mid volume printers as well. So I could see what jobs are currently in the queue. I could go in and again, monitor status for up to 32 printers, or by the way, the other thing you can do is you can have up to 32 people monitoring the status of your printer. So this isn't just for one person. This could be for your whole production team to be able to check on what printers are having issues. And you can see the status of the machine here is red or green or yellow, depending on what the nature of the issue might be, right? So we can monitor those error conditions really at a glance from the phone. Whoops, looks like I've got some issues here. So the other thing we can see is job history, right? And the job history is really powerful because I can see what jobs have already output, and then I can really take that down a step further, and that is to see actually how much ink was consumed in that job. So all that data that Timothy showed you in the PrintBeat application is also available through the mobile app, which is amazing. All right. All right. Queued jobs, I think we touched on. This is your printhead status. You can see your firmware status, the model number, the serial number of the printer, all that data, and we can tap on each one of those printheads and see what the status is, either red, green, or yellow once again. Okay. Moving down a little bit further, you also get that reporting that we touched on, right? So I can look at things like histogram views over time. This is my the print production, so I can see how many square feet, how many square meters of print have been output, and then compare that to previous periods, whether I'm trending up or trending down. Helps check my growth, right? We can also look at the status distribution to see what my machines are really doing. Are they printing most of the time? Or are they in an error state? Or are they in a ready state? What's going on, right? This is one of my machines here in San Diego. And as a result, it sits around most of the time doing very little because it's not a production printer platform, right? but this also lets us understand the capacity constraints as well as workflow considerations. Okay, another view would be your ink consumption, and you can check that over time to see trends. Okay, also your top 5 substrates. So if I'm made a business decision that says in 2020 I want to try and move away from banner because it's a low margin application, and I'm going to try and do more fabric. This allows me, for example, to see, am I actually doing that? Am I actually moving away from one to the other, and validate that my goals are actually being achieved, or if they're not being achieved, let's figure out why they're not being achieved, right? So very, very easy. As far as setting it up, very simple. You simply go to PrintOS, create the account. You do have to put, as Tim said, put a serial number into the printer. So you can't just get this without having a printer, right? But you can add one or more. Once you've got that, you can go actually to the front panel of the printer. The printer, if you go to the proper screen, will display a QR code. Your smartphone captures the code and actually does it, for the most part, automatically, provided that the data sharing agreement has been assigned. All right, so it's really quite simple. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Bob and see if there are any questions.
Well, hey, I want to thank you, Paul. Thank you, Timothy. This has been some great information. At this time, I'd like to open this up to the group for questions. Please take a moment now to type your questions into the chat box or question area. I see we have some coming in now. While we wait for the questions to appear, I once again want to thank Timothy and Paul for sharing this great information with everyone attending. I'm sure that now everyone has a better understanding of how PrintOS can help their business run during these odd times. Let me also take a moment to tell you a quick little bit about IT Supplies. As many of you know, IT Supplies is here to support your needs for everything related to the perfect print. Our knowledgeable staff and tech support specialists are here to help you with supplies and support to keep your business running. In addition, we are posting daily videos on our YouTube channel to help with many of your commonly asked questions. And please don't hesitate to contact your sales representative for any assistance you may need. If you don't know how to contact your rep, you can also call us at 800-771-9665 and ask for a commercial sales specialist. We are here to help you and your business succeed. So with that, I see Timothy has turned his camera on, and I see we have some questions. So we're going to go ahead and address these. So the first question that I see here, probably for Paul, I believe, can you use this functionality on your website? I think they're referring to the t-shirt, the 3D animated version where you created the t-shirt. I think they want to know if that's public. Is that facing out to the general public from your website?
Yeah, Bob. So the answer is yes, it is. It is available. That's exactly what the purpose of those tools are. Those application suite tools is to potentially be customer facing, or your customer facing, so to speak. The way that happens in practice is to go in there and get the account set up, and then once the account, in other words, with the serial number of the printer, get that printer, the physical printer, linked with the account. And then from there to go into PrintOS, go to the application suite and enable the module or modules that you want to enable, right? And the only question is, how does it link to your website? And I think I covered that very quickly, but there's 3 different options for linking it to your web presence, right? The first was through an external link, a very simple link that maybe on your web page it just says, hey, click here for, whatever the module happens to be. Right, and then that takes them right into the screens that I showed you. Not so much they wouldn't see the dashboard. That's something that you as the PSP would see, but they would then see that screen that actually goes into, maybe it's the t-shirt screen, where they can then start uploading, or either uploading their own content, using your content, or using some of the content that HP makes available to anybody. And then they can go through that process, create the file, so to speak, or build that file, send that to that file ends up getting sent back to you as the PSP. It does not go to the customer. It's because what you don't want to do is build that file and make it available to the customer, because they could then take that file and go anywhere they want with this. And we don't want that, right? What we want is that file to go to you as the PSP so that you can in turn around drive that printer. The other thing I should mention is that those files are encrypted, meaning they can only drive HP equipment. So they wouldn't be able to go to a competitive brand of device. Hopefully that answers your question.
I think that does, and I think that also moves to our second question, which was, can these 3D renderings, or the renderings, be exported so that you can send it as a proof to a customer who does not have PrintOS, or can they be shared as a link to the customer?
The renderings,
do you want to handle that?
Let me think about that. The renderings themselves obviously are visible on the screen. So a couple of things that come to mind might be something as simple as a screen grab. If that's what you're looking to communicate, just grab a screenshot of the image. But keep in mind that the access to it should be browser based, or it is browser based. So any customer, in theory, as long as they have internet access, should have access to this as well. So, I mean, I think you could do it with a screen grab. But the reality is that I can't think of a scenario, unless somebody's internet is down, that they wouldn't be able to access that directly and get the actual renderings sort of in real time.
And then another question is, servicing ink captured in the ink usage displayed in PrintBeat?
So servicing ink, depending on the platform now. So speaking for low volume latex, any servicing ink will be assigned to the next job, the actual production job. Because remember, these printers don't wake up and actually do sleeps and cleanings at all hours of nights and weekends. But as let's say there was a period of inactivity, maybe 24 hours or thereabouts, the next job that gets printed, the printer will automatically dynamically check out the health of the nozzles, perform any cleaning routines it needs to, and any ink that gets consumed in that servicing routine will be applied to the next production job.
To know. And then Timothy, I'm going to throw you a softball here. So how much does this cost?
Nothing. It comes with a printer. It costs the cost of the printer. So it's bundled into the printer. The software applications are part of our applications. None of it has any charge to a if you buy a Latex 315, you get everything Paul and I talked about. It's part of the package. It's a gift.
Generous. That's actually some pretty powerful stuff you guys are developing. And I'll just speak from my perspective at IT Supplies. You guys are launching new stuff all the time within that environment. So there seems to be a very big focus on the cloud-based environment. And it seems like there's something new and different every time I log in. So kudos to you guys for the continuing development that you're doing. So, with that, I don't see any other questions here. So I think that's really going to conclude things. So, do you have anything else to add, Timothy? Paul?
Only that was my camera on while I was goofing around with a heavy bag?
I might have missed that.
Okay. Anyway.
Too bad.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I hope so. Yeah. I mean well, but I have no skill set. Okay.
I wish I had seen it, but I didn't see it.
All right. That's good.
All right. We got one more question coming in. Wow. Question is, where does someone get the recorded version of this? Well, I can answer that. So Once we're done here, the recording will be processed over the next couple of hours, and we will make it available to everyone who attended, and we'll also be posting it in one of our future blog posts for people who want to go and see it afterwards. So, having said that, I think that concludes our first joint webinar between HP and IT Supplies. I've talked to Timothy. I think we're going to make this a regular thing, hopefully weekly or something. Keep watching. We'll be announcing that in our blog, on our LinkedIn, and through our email blasts. Thanks to Timothy and Paul for helping coordinate this event. I hope everyone walks away from this webinar more knowledgeable. Please don't forget to contact your IT Supplies sales representative regarding any assistance you may need. Thanks to all of our attendees. You've been tremendous. We hope you will join us again next Tuesday when we focus on Onyx Hub and how it can remotely monitor production across your fleet. In addition to this series, we'll be running a parallel series every Friday around textile. Please watch our LinkedIn page for additional details. Take care and have a great day.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks so much for watching this. If you would like to see more of these videos, please go to our YouTube channel.